Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Harry Potter review series. And if you've been watching these in the order I uploaded them, then you probably remember me ending off the last video by saying that we were going to look at Chamber of Secrets on the Game Boy Color, which obviously by the video title means we're not. I didn't really want to move on to Chamber, seeing as how there was still the PC version of Stone lingering out there, but at the end of the day I decided to call it a loss. However, shortly after posting the last video, I was reached out to by a commentator by the name of General Twaff, who was nice enough to share with me the files of the PC versions of both Stone and Chamber. And then after consulting another YouTuber by the name of MacG, I was successful in getting both games to run on my laptop in pretty damn good condition. So today, after about 6 years of trying, we are finally going to look at Sorcerer's Stone on the PC. A few things though before we get started. If you are interested in playing the first two Potter games on PC, I have linked MacG's video into the description. He explains what to do after getting the files for both games downloaded, because there's actually a few more steps to get a modern PC to read the files and open them correctly. Even if you do manage to open them, there still might be a couple of issues that crop up. For example, I'm pretty sure he says in one of the descriptions to make the game open up in a smaller window, but by doing that you kind of speed up the game, so it's like running at Mach 5. And I had to kind of open the game up fuller to a full screen, even though it still technically thought I was in a mini screen, because when I recorded my computer screen in Fraps, I still got like a quarter of the screen, so I had to stretch this out for the video so it didn't look like you guys were looking at a little tiny square in the corner. And there might be other issues too, such as textures that don't pop up. For a second there, I thought I was going to have an issue with Harry's glasses. I don't think I have any footage of it. I can check while I run through, but I think at one point when I was testing it, Harry's glasses kind of looked like a VR headset because the glasses themselves had like a shadow around them. So that looked a little weird, but at the end of the day, I didn't care if that's all I saw because I was still going to play it if it was smooth, because I'll take VR headset glasses than anything else, because Jesus, this took a long time to get going. I highly recommend watching his video because just downloading the files, like I said, isn't going to be enough. You're probably going to run into more issues than it's worth going on your own. I ran into a bunch before I decided to just take a minute and just follow his steps one at a time and figure out what I'd done wrong. A few things I had to get creative with. For example, I tried running a setup and it couldn't find some of the textures and files. He gives you all of the textures and files that you need, but they're looking for like specifically named ones, so I had to get a little fancy and rename some files. I don't know if you're going to run into that problem. His video didn't explain that, so if anyone does have problems, feel free to comment down and I'll try if I ran into them to see how to fix it. But his video kind of covers the spectrum, so it's helpful. Second, I would like to extend the middle finger to EA because holy hippogriffs, it should not be rocket science to play these games again. I have no idea why EA just doesn't put them on EA Access or Play or Origin or take your money. I don't know, whatever the hell store they have. And third, I also have secured a copy of Azkaban on PC, which runs pretty good too, so I'll be reviewing that as well in the future. Sadly, I do not believe that MacG had files in that video for that game, so you're kind of on your own finding it. I would link you to where I got my copy, but unfortunately the method in which I obtained it was not technically legal in the United States, so that's all I'm going to say about that. So without any further ado, let's look at Sorcerer's Stone on the PC. The plot is told by the narrative stills and the voice narration from the PlayStation version. There's actually a few added lines here regarding Vault 713 and that Hagrid goes there to visit it. But other than that, it's pretty much the same opening as the PlayStation. The rest hits the majority of plot points from the book, except in the later half of the game. In a strange turn, Nicholas Flamel is never mentioned here, nor do you ever attempt to sneak into the restricted section to find a book on him. Although now that I was thinking about it, I honestly don't remember if in the PlayStation game we were sneaking into the restricted section or Harry just got his cloak and was hiding from Filch. I really should play that again and try to figure that bit out. See, that's what happens when you review a game in the same series, like 7 years later. Hermione just ends up name-dropping the Sorcerer's Stone in like one of the later cutscenes, which just felt strange. Another change is the reworking of several plot points and the omission of others entirely. Whereas the PlayStation version had cutscenes depicting the attempt to bring Norbert to Charlie's friends at the top of the astronomy tower, the PC game actually makes this section playable. You have to avoid Filch in this section while trying to reach the tower and then make your way back down, and along the way you stumble across the Mirror of Erised. Also, I found it hilarious that in this scene where you're giving Norbert away, Harry is clearly visible, but Charlie's friends are just silhouettes. It's like they didn't even want to try to make up like what they might look like. You also don't get caught upon returning from the tower, so the entire section in the Forbidden Forest and the detention is axed completely. So there's no appearance of Firenze or Voldemort drinking the unicorn blood. And it's kind of strange because there's an added section earlier in the game where you search for the Fire Siege for Hagrid, sort of like what was done in the PlayStation game, although this area is a lot more expansive than what was there. And as usual for this franchise, the game is easily beaten in around 4 or 5 hours or less, so I don't get why you're cutting things out. I mean, the more the merrier if you ask me. The game also reworks the troll chase later into the game and has you being chased in a similar fashion to how it was done in the PlayStation version, only this time the sequence is a bit shorter. The ending challenges protecting the stone are done decently enough. You play music for Fluffy just like in the PlayStation and GBA version. The Devil's Snare is a boss fight of sorts, though you kind of just spam Incendio until all of the plants die and you can get at the roots holding Ron and Hermione. The Flying Key section acts like how Quidditch works, which I'll go over more in a sec. The chessboard acts like what was in the PlayStation version, though oddly there's just one board here instead of the multiple ones that were in that one, which was disappointing, but not as nearly disappointing as realizing that this was my very last attempt of hoping to just play a game of chess in this scene. Finally, the potion room returns, and this time it has you trying to find the correct vial in a shell game. This really wasn't anything special, though Hermione getting exasperated over how many times the vials were shuffled did make me laugh. Overall, if you enjoyed how the story played out on the PlayStation version, then this is essentially a lighter, more condensed version of events. In terms of gameplay, the system is kind of like a mashup of both the PS1 and the GBA version. Harry will attend several classes and learn spells before being asked to enter a challenge chamber to collect stars and gain house points. Learning the spells has you tracing the spell symbol with your mouse cursor, and the initial reaction to such a mechanic might make you think that the goal is to trace it with as much accuracy as possible. However, there's a bit more to it. You're graded on each trace, and you must get a passing grade in order to continue learning the spell. There's 4 sections with the pattern staying the same while the passing grade goes up. To get the highest grade, you gotta trace accurately and fast, which can be a tad tricky. In my playthrough, I never got all 4 sections cleared, but I did make it to the last one. The thing that kinda sucks about this is that the game gives you very little margin for error. If you fail once on any section other than the first, the game will immediately stop the lesson and move on. And as far as I know, there's no way to try this again. The only bonus to completing the other sections is more house points, which in the long run doesn't really make a difference. At least I don't think it does, since I messed up a bunch of time during this, but still won the house cup in the end. But I'm not sure if that's a scripted event in this game, or it's whether or not you gained enough house points like it was in the handhelds. After learning the spell, the professor takes you into the challenge area where you solve light puzzles and explore to find the stars. Collecting all the stars grants you bonus house points. And this works a lot better than the rooms that were in the PlayStation version. In that version, you tried the spell once and then you just moved on. But here, like I said, it's more about how the GBA did it, where it put you in a challenge area, and in an eerie sense of foreshadowing, it kind of plays like how the challenge chambers will function in Chamber of Secrets. The chambers themselves have light platforming, which works a little differently depending on the setting you chose for the controls. The standard controls for jumping are that you have to click the mouse cursor when you want to, or you can change the setting to have Harry auto-jump like what was seen on the PlayStation. I left it on with the mouse setting, and this worked pretty well, since you default control Harry using the arrow keys, which I used with my left hand, and then my right hand was used to control the mouse and click, which I felt like was a natural movement. The areas can be big and have a ton of hidden paths and secrets. However, the downside is that even when you find a hidden path or open a secret entrance, your reward more often than not is just beans, and very occasionally a wizard card, and I'll talk more about how those work in a bit. The spells you learn are Flipendo, which can hit switches, objects, and are used for combat against enemies, Alohomora, which can unlock doors, chests, and secret passages, Lumos, which makes platforms appear, though I'm not sure if this was my game not loading the texture correctly, but the platforms are just like these little glaring balls of light, which I thought just looked weird and unfinished. Wingardium Leviosa has you picking up blocks and placing them on switches, and finally Incendio just burns plants. To cast this specific spell, all you need to do now is highlight your mouse cursor over the object, and the symbol will appear, and then you can use it. The spells are all used frequently, and the later class challenges are fun because they incorporate all of them. None of the challenges are particularly difficult, but there is a novel feeling of joy as you move through a section, casting all the different spells and making progress. Another small addition to the gameplay is the Invisibility Cloak. Harry is always invisible in this version, though he becomes visible if he casts any spells. The sections in which you use the cloak have you trying to get past Filch and Mrs. Norris, though there are doors and switches that you need to hit to make progress, so the challenge here comes from trying to wait out Filch and Mrs. Norris to cast the spell, then quickly try to move on to the next obstacle. I really enjoyed this section as it required timing and was generally quite engaging. However, I did feel that there was a little bit more potential here than what was actually done. See, in one of the last rooms, the game starts telling you to hit an object to make noise to distract Filch, but you only really have to do it the one time, and I think it would have been more engaging to have the player try to hit objects to lure the pair out of the way. The way it stands now is you generally just have to wait for them to move. Still, overall, like I said, this use of the cloak is the best out of all versions of the game. Like I said in the other reviews, I get that being permanently invisible and that's all there is to it would make the game no fun. There has to be some kind of a challenge to it, so I feel like the PC version kind of captured the best of both worlds with that design. Before we move on to anything else, I want to mention how Beans and Wizards cards work in this version. So like in the PlayStation version, Fred and George collect them at various points. However, unlike that version, you don't collect a specific color type, rather just an overall amount. As I said, at certain points the twins will appear and ask Harry for 25 beans, and then they'll give you a wizard card. As far as I can remember, I think they always ask for 25, and like I said, you collect beans like every 5 seconds, so you'll always have a minimum of that, if not a lot more. The twins also always appear as part of triggered cutscenes, so I don't think that you can skip them or miss them. I guess at the end of the day, no one is pointing a wand to your head and telling you to talk to them, so I guess that's up to you. And speaking of the wizard cards, there are 25 of them this time around, and as I hinted at before, you'll probably find a great deal of them if you explore the challenge chambers and Hogwarts thoroughly, since that's where most of them are, and I managed to snag more than half of them, and I wasn't even actively trying to do that. As for aside distractions to your studies, you get to take part in Quidditch matches in addition to the flying class. The controls here wisely throw the mouse out of the equation. Instead, you can steer left and right using the arrow keys, while the up and down arrows change your height. You can speed up or slow down by pressing A and Z. The setup actually works pretty well, as on my first attempt in the flying class I managed to miss only like maybe 3 or 4 rings. Quidditch works similar with the controls, but now you have to worry about catching the snitch. Unlike the PlayStation version, which had you flying through 3 sets of rings before letting you catch the snitch, now there are no rings. Now there's just a small streak behind the snitch, and you gotta try to stay as close to it as you can while a bar fills up. After that, then you get the bar where you must click the mouse button when the snitch is in Harry's hand. These matches can be fun, and they're nice little side diversions from the main story. And as a bonus, you can play Quidditch or access the flying class right from the main menu. In this mode, you play a championship league in which you must play each house twice. However, don't expect anything for beating all 6 matches, because I did it, and all I got was this nice congratulations screen before it booted me back to the main menu. I enjoyed the Quidditch matches, though because of their completion is now based on how well you keep up with the snitch, these matches can be completed within a few minutes to a few seconds. I kinda wish the ring system from the PlayStation version was reused here, because that would have extended the matches at least for a little bit. Also, the ring system would have definitely helped me stay on target with the snitch, because more often than not I would end up losing sight of it when it would turn on a dime and head in the opposite direction. There are a few boss fights here, although they're nothing special, with the one exception being the final fight. You get to fight Peeves at certain points, though calling these boss fights is being very generous if you ask me. You just sort of watch as Peeves circles around, and after he tosses something, you can hit him. It's the same for both fights, and because of the simple design, these fights are over within seconds. Then there's the troll in the girls' bathroom. This has Harry trying to hit all of the objects the troll is throwing at him and Ron. Ron is also trying to raise the troll's club, so you gotta protect him, as if he gets hit, the club lowers. This starts out simple, but near the end the troll speeds up, and I had to move into a better position to quickly hit all the debris out of the way. The final battle with Voldemort was pretty much the best out of the batch. You start off by hiding behind pillars while Voldemort shoots spells. Once he's behind a pillar, you can hit that one with Flipendo, and have the pillar crash onto him. After you do that a few times, you'll have to start hitting the Mirror of Erised with Flipendo to hit Voldemort. Making this section a little bit more challenging is that you gotta get the mirror to face the right way, and Voldemort keeps moving around in a circle. I actually died a few times here, but I finally got lucky and dodged enough of his spells and got the mirror to spin the right way more often than not. Again, this isn't the hardest fight in the world, but compared to what came before, it is the highlight. The presentation is quite frankly superb and way better than what was seen in the PlayStation version. The character models for one are taken from the PlayStation version, only they're way more detailed and sharper. The voices are also taken directly from the PlayStation, and in some cases the lines are ripped straight from that version. The Hogwarts Castle looks terrific, and while like in the PlayStation version it's not a direct representation of what was in the film, it still manages to fit the style of what was seen. Adding to the atmosphere is the score from Jeremy Soule. The music is taken again from the PlayStation, but there are more tracks added this time, and they sound just as great as the originals. I honestly loved the atmosphere of this game. It created a nice warm aesthetic. Hogwarts is nicely detailed, and there's never a room that looks plain or empty. The castle's not too big, but there's a substantial amount of rooms that allow you to explore and find secrets. I honestly loved how everything looked. Like I said, there was a sense of warmth and excitement as I made my way through the halls of Hogwarts, and I could hear the soundtrack building and the sounds of torches burning in the background. Overall, I really enjoyed my time with the PC version of Sorcerer's Stone. Out of the original games based on Stone released alongside the film, the PlayStation version was my favorite. Though now I have to say that this version probably tops that. Again, this isn't counting the remake on PS2, Xbox, and GameCube. I still think you're getting your money's worth out of the amount of content in the PlayStation version, though I feel the design of the PC version is better even if it's shorter. Kinda wish there was a way if you could take the graphics and the design of the PC game and sort of just wedge it into the PlayStation version, because then you would have a really badass game. The design of going to class and learning spells and then entering a challenge area really is the best gameplay mechanic for this series. The puzzles might not be all that taxing, but like I said, it's enjoyable to use all the spells and get through each area. And the Quidditch sections acts as a nice break to each challenge area, even if it's not too involved. And this is why the series continued to use this design in the remake, in Chamber, and in Azkaban, and why I think I speak for all fans who were incredibly pissed off when the game starting with Goblet got rid of what was clearly working so far. So if you've never experienced the PC version of Stone, I really beg you to use the links in the description to give it a try. I can't say that it'll be easy to run, since it took me 2 whole days to get it to work, but I still think you should give it a shot because this version was a lot of fun. It made me feel like the old days when I first played Stone, Chamber, and Azkaban. That sense of immersion, feeling like I'm actually Harry going around the halls of Hogwarts. Feelings that, I didn't feel in the later titles thanks to the lovely choices that EA made to those games. So the Harry Potter series will continue next time, as now we will finally look at Chamber of Secrets on the Game Boy Color. Thanks for watching.